What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode 214 of Hobby Hotline. This is, of course, Hobby Hotline Overtime. My name is, of course, Drew, or the DH, and joining me today, we've got Uncle Rich Klein. What's up,
Hey
Rich?
there.
How's it going? And then also joining us today, we've got, looks like massive Eagles fan, Cousin Oz. What's up, dude?
Yeah. Got to
I
represent,
haven't
baby.
gotten to do a show with you yet, so I haven't seen the background. I haven't seen all of the Eagles memorabilia behind me.
Yeah. Got to represent, man.
All right.
It's an honor to be on here with the Hobby Yoda, Rich Klein, and
Right.
of course you, Drew. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Looking forward to being here. What's up, Foul Ball? How's it going? Everyone else for tuning in, thank you so much. Once again, this is Hobby Hotline, so you know you guys are more than welcome to call in. Join the show if you'd like. If you have any questions, comments, or anything, we would love to have you guys either call in or just simply drop a comment in the chat. Either one is just fine, but gonna go on and post the link here if you guys would like to jump in. What's going on? Baltimore Sports Cards, Spirit of the 90s, everyone else tuning in, thank you guys so much. There's the link for you guys if you would like to call in. But Rich, Oz, I guess there's nowhere to start but last night. I guess we'll touch on maybe last night's game, BCS title game first. It's kind of
Is Georgia still scoring? Georgia
Was
scored another touchdown while we were waiting?
I'm pretty sure.
Was that a game? Was that a game?
That's
I was about to
biggest
say, do we really call it a game? Like, is it? I don't know.
Herman's in the chat. I think he thinks it's a game. Congratulations, Herman.
Yes, congratulations, Georgia, period. But, I mean, I don't know. I honestly forgot the game was on until it was on. It was a pathetic build-up to the game, I thought, too. I think it was a foregone conclusion this was going to happen to most people. Cinderella story works nice in basketball, but if you're going to put this few teams in, I don't think that Cinderella story is really going to happen much and have as big of an effect as you'd like it to, even being football. But, you know, that was a pretty interesting game yesterday. You did see some pretty amazing performances from some players at Georgia that do have some cards thanks to Bowman U and things like that, some first Bowmans. But interesting game to say the least, if you want to call it a game.
Well, to me, the most interesting thing is, and I don't know his last name, but Stetson. I just love the fact that you have a quarterback with the name of Stetson.
I think it's
Normally
Barrett.
it's associated with a hat.
Stetson Barrett.
Good name.
I mean, sorry, Bennett.
That's a good name. And the thing is that he's not considered a high-level NFL prospect, if one at all, at this point.
No.
Yet you would think that a person who leads a team to 2 national titles should probably end up somewhere, even as a third-string quarterback. Having said that, to me, he's the perfect example of especially now that NIL rules are getting more and more relaxed. I think Panini still has the collegiate license.
Yes.
Can we please start getting cards of football players and basketball players and other sport players in college when they're in uniform and sell them and do money with them? In fact, not related to any of this, I was reading this morning about a gymnast. I have no idea what her name, but she's, a very pretty influencer, like 20 years old. She's a gymnast. And she's got like millions of followers, and guys just follow her and follow her and follow her. And they're actually annoying and upsetting the rest of her teammates on her gymnastics team. But could you imagine the cards of her? How many they sell? Yeah. I mean, we as a hobby, we're always looking for new ways to bring people in.
Yeah. Well,
and I mean, cards of her, I would be honest, might bring in a whole, maybe people you don't think collects cards would say, I'll take cards of her. Mm-hmm. I mean, remember a couple of years ago, Tony Fauci cards and Topps now sold like 100,000 copies. There are always ways to draw new people in. Right now, I would bet, and Herman's here, so I'd like to hear his opinion. Well, everybody in the state of Georgia, that's a little bit of an exaggeration.
Well, Bennett does have a couple.
Probably wants a Stetson Bennett card.
Bennett does have a couple of cards thanks to the NIL license, it looks like, and Brian Gray with Leaf. Just looking on here, it does look like he was in a couple of sets, at least in college standouts this year. He's got an auto right now. It ends in an hour and 15 minutes if anyone wants it, but you're going to have to cough up a cool $550 at least, and it's numbered out of 95. So they're definitely going through the roof, the few that he has. But it does look like he signed a couple of NIL deals, at least with Leaf, and then with a company called Superglow, which has put out a couple of different products. It looks like he's in Superglow as well, but no tops yet. They didn't put him in Bowman U, I guess, because I don't know. You would assume that they would, but he does have a couple of cards out, it does look like.
Well, one of the things is, and I know we touched upon this last week when Mr. Hamlin prices were going through the roof because of the sad situation that occurred to him on the football field. This is a case of how prices should rise. Right. Somebody does something on the field that's really good. Exactly. Your price goes up. Maybe it's higher than it should be, where it'll end up settling. But they just won 62-7. Biggest margin ever. Second straight national title. I think the person might be happy with that card, especially when there are no others out there right now.
Yeah, especially if you
had any, if you opened it, they were about $80, and now they're going for around 600. So you're definitely on a come up if you had any. Anyway, Oz, what do you think on all this? What do you think on the game?
Yeah, definitely. Like he was just saying, it really, the fact of the play on the field should actually contribute to the the value of the card. We had the Damar Hamlin. I don't know if you want to call it I wasn't okay with it. Some people are okay with profiting off of. Thank God he did not pass away. Yeah. And he's recovering just fine. I guess he's out of the hospital now and back. I still believe he's now in Buffalo in a hospital. They're just checking up on him, but I mean obviously he's progressing. But at the time when we had no idea what was going on, and just to see these cards going through the roof and people profiting off of it, I don't know. I just didn't get a really good vibe off of that. That I wasn't feeling that.
No, this is definitely how cards should rise. I mean, it should be based on performance. I'd like to see how long this lasts. I'm sure he's got a lot more NIL deals now than he did a couple of days ago. I'm assuming he's got a lot of offers, at least. Maybe not deals, but I'm assuming offers, and I'm going to guess Topps is going to lock him down. Well, I mean, if he does go to the draft and gets drafted, Topps is going to have him no matter what eventually.
He might even get cards if he's not drafted as a quarterback. Yeah, and that's one of the things that has happened in the past. I would not be surprised to see cards of him this year by the major manufacturers, even if he is not drafted.
Oh, absolutely. He's a quarterback.
Brock Purdy, was he Mr. Irrelevant, or am I thinking of? Yeah, so he was the last person drafted, and look what he's doing now. So you don't believe like Stetson Bennett could be the next Brock Purdy?
I think anything is possible.
I think, right now has got to be one of the hardest time for scouts also, because it's a total throwing a dart at a dartboard and just like blindfolded and just hoping you hit, because the quarterback position's evolving completely. The way you throw the ball is evolving as a quarterback. No more do they even teach it over the head. You're throwing sidearm almost, it seems like half the time. They're changing everything about the quarterback. And what it is, you're seeing short quarterbacks able to play. The size of the offensive line not meaning as much because they're doing the rollout instead of just sitting in the pocket. So much stuff is changing in the game that if you can build a good system around a quarterback, I think a lot of these guys can be contenders. He can easily be a quarterback in the pros if he's put in the right system.
Yeah,
100%.
I mean, some people think Patrick Mahomes is the most unorthodox quarterback you'll ever see. He's pretty effective the last time I checked.
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
It seems
he throws the balls in ways you've never seen before. They somehow get there.
Yeah. He throws 5 balls a game that 10 years ago you would say no quarterback in their right mind should throw that football. Yeah. And he throws at least 5 a game, and they're all beautiful. So, I mean, the whole position is changing. And so what's going to work on a pro level, I think a lot of coaches are still trying to figure out, is because we're seeing a lot of younger coaches bringing in new types of game plans, new types of stuff. It's really an evolving game, especially on the offensive level. And when you look at that, what kind of quarterback is going to be the perfect quarterback for that mold? I don't think we really know yet, but you look at the AFC playoffs, as I said before the show was starting with you guys. Patrick Mahomes, the oldest quarterback in the AFC, starting in an AFC playoff game.
That's crazy.
27. I mean, like, you don't know who's going to be great, in like right now as far as quarterbacks are. And I think, like I said, I don't want to say it's all system, but it has a lot to do. It's always had a lot to do with it. I don't like to call anyone a system quarterback, but if you put someone with a lot of talent, which obviously Bennett has, in a good system and a good fit for him, which not being a first round pick, he has a great chance for that to happen.
I totally agree with that. You know, and I don't see that as a knock. All these guys, they have their own systems, especially these young coaches coming into the league. They want to come in and put their stamp on it. So to say, oh, he's a system quarterback. I mean, Tom Brady didn't have all the athletic skills. Right. He was a winner. You know, he had the intangibles. And when it came to crunch time, he was able to pull through, but he had the system, the whole New England system that they put together, and you know, he mastered that. So it's just to say, oh, he's a system quarterback. I don't even see that as a knock anymore.
In all sports, your coach, your manager, you know, whatever the thing is, a really smart one creates the system for his players instead of trying to fit the players into the system. You know, Whitey Herzog, Hall of Fame manager in the 80s.
Yep.
Managed the St. Louis Cardinals to one World Series win and a couple other World Series appearances in a 6-year period. And they probably should have won 85 with the exception of a bad call by Don Deckinger. But what he did is that he had Busch Stadium, which was artificial turf and fairly large, geared for fast people. How did he stock his team? Fast, really fast players. Yeah. And he had one power hitter in the mid 80s. It was Jack Clark, but he always had George Hendrick for the 82 team. He always had one guy with the big power, and then the rest of the team were speedsters.
Yeah.
Why? Because it was a team that fit where they were playing. And I guarantee you, if he was in Baltimore like Earl Weaver, he would have had a team trying to hit home runs. Earl Weaver was a big fan of the 3-run homer. It fit the stadium he was in. If Earl Weaver was in a bigger stadium or artificial turf, Earl Weaver might have gone for a faster team too.
Well, one interesting thing, and Baltimore Sports Card says, how about the Georgia defensive line? That they were amazing. Tons of guys on the defensive side that are going pro. Also on the offensive side, talking about someone going pro that we know is at least touted to be a future star, Brock Bowers, the wide receiver. He certainly showed out last night, and he looks to have a pretty steady pro career. He is in Bowman U. But I had a question for you guys real quick in regards to that, him having a Bowman U card. What do you think about the Bowman U product when it comes to guys like these? And do you think that that's something, obviously it's brand new this year and they're branching it out into the new sports, kind of slow rolling it in until they get that license and they can fully do it. But what do you guys think about the Bowman U cards in terms of, you know, future value with some of these guys having that first Bowman stamp and everything on it? Do you think it's something that's going to catch on in other sports like baseball? Rich, I mean, I know you've seen a lot of Bowman and everything. Do you think it catches on, or do you think it's something where we're always going to just focus on the pro? Because with the new NIL licenses, I assume we're going to see a lot more college stuff coming out.
Oz, go first.
That's tough, man. You know, for such a long time, the college cards, they're always kind of looked down upon. Everybody wants that pro card that for the rookie. Yeah. Rich is very smart. Yes, he is. So yeah, it's kind of tough to say if that's ever the Bowman U is gonna take off. But I believe like there's fans out there that are just Georgia fans or Penn State fans or whatever your college is. You know,
East Carolina. That's
there
all
you go.
Back here. So
right.
Yeah.
So, you know, Card Collector 2 is a big Ohio State guy that he primarily just, you know, PCs all Ohio State. So there's always going to be a market for those types of cards. So as far as if they're going to recognize those as their real rookie, I mean, I find that hard to believe. You know, I think it's still going to be, you know, obviously whatever their first rookie is when in their NFL uniform. And, you know, it goes by the national treasures or whatever you want to go by, in particular with the, you know, football, baseball, that all, you know, changes across the board. But yeah, I think there's going to be a market for it. Is it ever going to, you know, take over the NFL or, you know, professional baseball? I don't think so.
I would love to see the Bowman U sets expand. We have 110 college football teams in Division One, and usually a few stars sprinkled in Division Two or Division Three or FCS, FBS. They don't call it Division 1, 2, 3 anymore in college football, but for our purposes, we'll use that old term. And so, not everybody gets to go pro. So for some of the players, this will be their only chance to sign autographs, and for the fans and the collectors to get cards of them in uniforms. And the more we can do that, I'm a big fan. And I have no idea, and this is way above where I would ever be on a food chain. I'll be really curious what Fanatics wants to do with Bowman U now that they own it, because that, to me, it's a natural extension of Fanatics business to get into college sports, which is such a passionate field. So I think I have no knowledge. I have no information. I don't know a thing. In my opinion, you will see 200-300 card sets in football and probably 100-150 card sets in basketball going forward for Bowman U, if not larger, with most everybody having autograph cards.
I hope to see more. Like you said, I hope to see more products, because me being an East Carolina guy, it's very rare when we have someone, but every once in a while, like next year, we've got a couple. Baseball, we've been fortunate to have like Alec Burleson and a couple of better guys lately, but it's few and far between. But that's my PC. That's what I collect in cards. Like Carolina Panther stuff's all memorabilia and things like that. So my cards are all East Carolina and then random vintage stuff. So I Bowman U just from a college collector standpoint, but I think with that first Bowman designation and the idea, I think it's something that's going to catch on, especially when the licenses transfer over. And so I can see the slow rollout. And to answer DR's question, what's the rookie status for Hobby Hotline? Do you gain rookie status the first time you call in or the first time you're on the panel? I think we would have to defer to Victor on that, wouldn't we? I mean, just out of
DR, if you haven't called in, put the link in and let him call in so we can all say hi to him.
Yeah, there you go. If you'd like to call in, we can at least put a first Bowman on that if you call in, I'm sure.
There you go.
Can at least first Bowman it. But that is the link if you would like to call in. And yes, Cousins Collectibles, as I said right there, much bigger crowds at big-time college stadiums than the NFL. That's absolutely true.
Yeah.
I've had season tickets to the Panthers since they started, and I also went to college at East Carolina, and we're a small. I mean, it wasn't a small university; it's bigger than NC State, but that stadium and that atmosphere, game days were 1,000 times more fun than any pro game you'll ever go to. Just the entire atmosphere from the second you walk in, whether you're a college kid or an adult, the atmosphere is just completely different, even when they're terrible. And when you have something like that, especially when you're good, there's absolutely nothing like a college game.
Exactly.
At least in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely.
And I will tell you that the energy in any college basketball game, especially when they're two good teams, far surpasses 99% of NBA games. I mean, if you have NBA playoff games late with the two of the best teams in the league, yes. But for the most part, you give me a college basketball game, even regular season, it far surpasses any enthusiasm at most NBA games. As I said, every once in a while you will have an NBA game that's just off the charts. But
I mean, you got the pride of the school, you got the games. As far as the number of games being played in college is less, so that each one of those games means way more than an NBA game. Half the time, there's people taking off, the professional players, they're resting. Joel Embiid's off every other day, or things like that. So yeah, until you get to the playoffs, the NBA is a different beast, and you go up, say, the Warriors versus, say, I don't know, Ja Morant and these guys. So that would be a way different game in the playoffs as opposed to right now.
Cousinage, you mean you don't trust the process?
I trust the process, but the process is letting me down, brother. I don't know. I've been trusting way too long. Starting to doubt.
Hey, Joel, by the way, Joel is a top 5 or top 10 NBA player. He is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah,
As
I
Baltimore
agree.
Sports Card says, NBA D League cards are not
I've
popular.
never
And
seen the G League cards.
I was about to say the reason that they aren't, I think, is because they're new. They're bringing an entire new set that has. I mean, it's not like when you just start making F1 cards or something where you already have built-in superstars. You're literally starting a brand with prospects. I mean, that's difficult to build an audience immediately. But when you have a name like Bowman behind it, I think that's what can turn it into something strong. And some of those Bowman U basketball cards this year, I mean, I sold a Shaden Sharp. He's in the pros now, but I sold one of his first Bowman's, his orange autos for like 550, 600, something like that. I mean, some of those cards sell for a lot of money. There is some audience for it already, but yeah, right now, no, they're not at all.
Okay,
But you are right. Most college basketball players.
Sorry. As a big fan of the Texas Legends, which is the D League team, or the G League team, actually, 20 minutes from my house, easily accessible tickets. Not a ton of people go, but a fun game, really exciting, a great family thing. They have things for the kids there. I mean, when my young great nephews and great nieces are in town, we'll take them to the game so they can just play in the kids area. And I don't get to see the game, but that's okay. But it's really a fun family experience. But your players in the league are sometimes the two-way players, sometimes the guys that are just that far short of being NBA players, and sometimes the guys the NBA doesn't like for some reason.
Well, when you're looking at the NBA also where they are, they're kind of in the middle of trying to build that minor league system. They're trying to build that infrastructure and build up a program that is a true minors. And I think once that's established, I think you might have a little bit more of a fan base, because right now it's so stretched out between the D League, the G League, college, overtime elite. You've got all these different programs now that are all stretched out with different licenses, different things. And so I think until like the actual structure of something that's accepted as like a minor league system is made, it's going to be really hard for people to truly get behind any of the products, I think, because there's going to be a lot of moving parts in the next 5 to 10 years.
And I think that's exciting. I think when you have things like that, it's exciting. It can be a little aggravating for a collector, but it's also exciting because you don't know you don't know what the final decision is going to be. Right. So you could make a guess and be absolutely right or absolutely wrong. And that can actually be exciting. Like, it's not a guarantee. It's not like buying, as you said, a Joel Embiid card. Okay, he's a really great player. He's on a Hall of Fame path. Unless something really goes wrong, he will make the Hall of Fame. Or a Giannis card, or down here Luka cards, or Curry cards in Golden State, even Klay Thompson. People like that. All these guys. DeMar DeRozan, by the way, just passed the 20,000 point mark this year. You want to talk about a guy quietly building a Hall of Fame career?
Yes.
I don't talk about investment, but that name just popped in. He's got 20,000 career points.
Yeah.
That's an accomplishment.
Solid. He's like a Rip Hamilton. That mid-range game, he's a killer.
Yeah.
No, he's one of the most underrated, in my opinion, at least. He has been for a while now, but this year he's taken it to a completely different level. Definitely one of the most underrated players in the league.
Yeah.
Rip Hamilton won an NCAA title with UConn.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he's always been one of my favorite players. And then he won an NBA title.
Yep.
He's with the Pistons. He's one of my favorite players. To me, he's not your star, but your perfect second player. In the 70s, he reminded me of Bobby Dandridge. So I'm sure Danny remembers Bobby Dandridge.
Yeah, he had that old school game. That mid-range, it's a dying art. It's rare to see that. DeMar DeRozan, he's one of the few in the league today that has that little mid-range.
No, the mid-range game is completely gone in the NBA. Well, not completely. DeRozan and a couple people have it, but it's nothing like it was. But Rip definitely was. Rip was on another level. But DeMar DeRozan, absolutely, Rich, building the future Hall of Fame career, I think. And hopefully one day he gets that respect. But you look at people just like Jokic, for some reason, the hobby just doesn't migrate to him. But then you look at someone like Lauri Markkanen, and for some reason the hobby's attacking him. It makes no sense. It's just what a couple people decide to buy high end, I guess, because I mean, Lauri Markkanen is one of the highest risers of the last 6 months on a consistent basis, but yet we're talking about people, DeMar DeRozan and Jokic, that he's flying by. So, I mean,
yeah. Well, Lauri had a couple nice dunks. You know what I mean? He's been dunking on people's heads. So
right.
Lauri's a good all-around player.
He is. He's a good player.
You know, to me, these guys are safer than Zion. Zion is just, I think, too big, you know, too bulky, and he keeps getting hurt. I mean, it's harder for Zion to keep playing at that high level because his body, I think, is actually just too big for what he's doing. And I'm not saying he's fat. He's just too big.
Look at Larry Johnson.
Larry Johnson, what a great player. He was a great college player, decent enough NBA player, and it's the same thing.
Yeah. Back couldn't hold up, and then it eventually went down to the knees. I mean, I was a Hornet season ticket holder, so I went and saw a lot of those games.
I was all in. I was all invested in Larry Johnson from UNLV. I had all his cards.
There you go. So did I. And I mean, you had him. I mean, look, I mean, he was grandma. He had the TV deals when people weren't getting TV deals. I mean, he was, and that's what I mean. I looked at Zion as. I mean, Larry Johnson was people don't realize, I think, how big that dude was. Like when you saw him in person, he's a monster.
And Larry Johnson down here, he's a Dallas kid. So he was very popular down. When I first moved down here, he was a Dallas kid, and he was, you know, he led UNLV to the national title. So, I mean, he's another guy that, you know, he's the type of guy who someday might surprise you. And I'm going to say this in all seriousness. Because remember, the Basketball Hall of Fame is not just college, not just pros, but it can be a mix. Larry Johnson can end up in the Hall of Fame.
Yes. He should be in it.
Yeah.
You would think he'd be eligible now.
Well, you're always eligible as a senior, so you can always get in.
Yeah. Well, hopefully he does.
I mean, he had a stretch where he was pretty unstoppable, you know, and then like you said, the injuries just took over and his game diminished. But even still, he was effective, especially for the Knicks after the whole run.
Yeah.
So
speaking of the Hall of Fame vote tracker, Ryan Thibodeau's master creation is doing very well, showing who's got the votes, the announced votes for the Hall of Fame right now. And right now, Scott Rowland and you can look it up. Somebody else they're both over 75% in the early voting. And there's some good things. So let me look it up, because these are guys that, you know, you never necessarily thought of Scott Rowland as a Hall of Famer, and the other guy as well. You never really thought of them as Hall of Famers. Yet,
DR, I had multiple, and the funny thing is, if I could get to it right now, I've still got it in the closet. I've still got it from when I was a kid. It doesn't fit, but Jude wears it all the time to school. Because it fits him now, because it was around when I was 7 or 8, 9 years old. But I had every single one every single year. Tons of the Hornet starter jackets. I had the Sixers one team.
The other guy right now over 75%, and I should have remembered this, is Todd Helton.
Oh, Todd Helton.
Okay.
And I mean, Todd Helton has always been the interesting Hall of Fame candidate because of all the time in Colorado. On the other hand, he gets the benefit because he's a one-team career player, and the Hall of Fame voters do like one-team career players.
So do I.
And Scott Rowland did play for several teams. And as I said, you never really associate. I don't ever remember Scott Rowland when he was playing future Hall of Famer Scott Rowland, but yet you're looking at his everything overall, and you realize, you know what? He's probably one of the 10 best third basemen ever, and probably is a Hall of Famer.
The numbers are there.
Well, here's a question I got for you guys on a hobby level. Speaking of Hall of Fame, we saw after the Packers game with Aaron Rodgers, it looked more like, without saying a word, it looked 1,000% like he was saying goodbye to everyone. He turned down giving his jersey away, saying he had to keep that one for himself. So obviously that game in particular means something very important to him. I don't know if it's retirement. I don't know if he goes somewhere else. It seems like he still wants to play, but it seems like he's resigned himself to the fact that he's not playing anymore, at least in Green Bay. Or at least that's how it looked. I mean, if you watch him and Randall Cobb walk off the field together at the end of the game, like arm in arm, shoulder in shoulder, it was like him saying goodbye. What do you think about him and his card values on, because he never really had that super high jump. He did have his Super Bowl and everything. It's MVPs, but where does he settle? Does he get any bump? Does he go higher, and everything? And where do you see him ranking kind of in the hobby? And what do you think he does next?
Yeah, I don't think he's retiring. He still has a lot of game left in him. The perfect situation would have been to go to San Francisco. He's always wanted to play there, but now with the emergence of Brock Purdy, who knows if Brock Purdy goes on a run in the playoffs? I kind of think he has the job. Now, if he falters first round exit, then I think that opens a door for Aaron Rodgers to go there. But yeah, I think with Aaron, it's a catch-22 with him. There's a lot of people that love him, and there's a lot of people that just don't like him. And his hobby value has just always been on that borderline where, it's high, but it's not where for the caliber of player that he is, it should be a lot higher. And it just, there's certain quarterbacks out there that I believe that their value should be way higher than they are. When the peak happened a year or two ago, obviously Tom Brady went through the roof and he became, the man, the GOAT. And that's where all the other quarterbacks were listed on. But then you have, the Montanas, you have the Peyton Mannings, players like that, where I just think there's such a gap between the Bradys and them. And I think Rodgers is there. And honestly, when Rodgers retires, I think he's going to be like, the farther away he gets from the game, I think the more of his mystique is going to rise. I just think, because you're going to recognize his greatness. I just think it's almost like while he's playing, he's just one of those players that kind of rubs people the wrong way. But when he's gone, they're going to be like, damn, Rodgers was the man.
A couple of things with Rodgers. One, in his press conference after the game, he says he knows he has to make the decision early this year, which is not something he did last year.
Yeah.
Which tells you that whatever decision he makes, he knows he wants to do it early, whether it's I want to play somewhere else or whether I want to stay here. He's going to make it early.
Well, see, he saw what happened with Brett Favre when he had to sign with Minnesota with what happens if you just play it too long. He learned from the master to make that decision early.
And the other thing is Aaron Rodgers, who was one time was perceived as, I don't want to say the All-American boy, but was perceived as a normal person, has definitely done some off-the-wall stuff. Not bad, but just considered a little bit loony the last couple of years. And that does also affects a person's card value.
Oh, absolutely. It definitely does. He's definitely a little nuts. I mean, he doesn't have any, he has no relationship with his family, which is unfortunate and sad. But, who knows the reasons for all that type of stuff. But he is, I agree. His personality and everything kind of rubs people the wrong way, but I also agree with what you said, Oz. I think when his cards and stuff like that, because he was still around in an era before massive production increases happened, to where his rookies and stuff are pretty limited in the grand scheme of things. They're pretty limited for anybody, at least in this generation of card values. He hit that sweet spot of pretty low print runs with just about everything, plus not being a number one overall top prospect, at the time. So combining all that, I think when his cards are almost vintage, when, down the line, when he is, maybe not announcing, when he's not making headlines and, he's just kind of resigned himself to retiring and getting out of the public eye, I think that's when you're going to see a lot more appreciation for his cards than you're going to see right now. Just because he does rub a lot of people the wrong way, myself included, but that's from personal interaction, not by anything I've ever read, just my own interactions with him. But
well, now you got to tell that story. You can't just throw that out there.
Well, no, yeah. All right. So I used to write, and I was a beat writer for the Panthers. And so I was at a bar with my sister, and let's just say he's hit on my sister and been a little rude about it. So yeah. and I watched it happen. So,
wow.
Outside of that, just good old Aaron. Good old Aaron.
Gotcha.
But, yeah. We'll leave it at that.
All right.
Yeah.
Works for me.
Yeah. But yeah, I think once he gets a lot further along, I think that's where you'll see appreciation for it, because that's when I think a lot of people get appreciated that aren't in their time, is once they're forgotten about long and far. Maybe not considered vintage cards or anything along that line, but once he's out of the game, other people are cementing their legacy and things like that.
Yeah.
But I still think, like you said, there's Brady, there's Manning, but then there is a pretty significant drop off after that.
You got Mahomes. Like Mahomes is kind of like Mahomes is in there. You know what I mean? Like he's that guy. But then it's just everybody else. Then
And if somebody like Justin Herbert or Josh Allen takes off and somehow wins a Super Bowl this year, as we're talking about how young the AFC quarterbacks are, that can propel them to another level too.
Yeah.
Hey, we've been sort of knocking Aaron Rodgers. Let's not forget, he has spent like 18 years in Green Bay.
No, I respect that like crazy.
And he won a Super Bowl. He does have those two things going for him. And Green Bay players do tend to be popular among collectors. So there is that little detail too.
And how many MVPs does he have? 2?
3, I believe.
3?
Didn't he win one at one time and then back? Didn't he win back to back at once?
Possible.
I believe so. Aaron Rodgers is icky. Yes. I would agree with you. I would agree 100%.
Spoken like a true Eagles fan, Mr. Keating.
Yeah. But yeah, the Green Bay does have a great collecting base. You are right about that.
Yeah.
And that will help as well in the long run. But also Green Bay has a rich history of quarterbacks. So it'll be interesting to see. But watching that game, if you haven't seen him walk off the field, I highly recommend seeing the video, because one look at that can tell you that if he's playing football next year, it will not be in a Packer uniform.
No,
there's no way it happens.
That's over in Green Bay.
So we shall see. All right. So speaking of not being in the playoffs is Green Bay, but the NFL playoffs, we mentioned it a little bit with the AFC playoffs and everything happening now. What do you guys think about the NFL's decision and everything that they did with in terms of how to settle the game, everything like that? And what are you guys looking forward to in the NFL playoffs?
That was a tough one. So they had the coin toss. So how did that work? I was more concerned with DeMar Hamlin and not so much the game. And so I really didn't get into it as far as what exactly happened. I know there was a coin toss, and I believe Cincinnati got the raw end of the deal. So how does it work if Buffalo or somebody gets to the AFC Championship, is going to be played on a neutral field?
That's my understanding. If one of them goes, then it's played on a neutral field. That's how it's going to be. That's how it's going to be played.
I think the NFL meandered their way to the correct decision.
Yeah.
I mean, but we've never had a situation like that before.
No.
The right decision about stopping the game. The players were not going to be able to get
No.
It was the absolute right decision.
Yep.
I did forget that I did check to see whether it was 1 or 2 weeks between the conference championship games and the Super Bowl. It is 2 weeks. You could have pushed everything back a week if you so desired. But I think that on a business level, this also makes a lot of sense. Yep. Some team's not going to get the home field advantage if it's those two, but you have to try to be as equitable as possible to all concerned.
Yes.
And this was truly a situation that has never happened in an NFL game before. Early in the season, they probably could have made some moving parts and, gotten the game back done, 6 weeks later.
Yeah.
This late in the season, they couldn't get it done. And they may have been thinking, we're going to play the game. And then the players just said, and the coaches said, there's no way we're playing this game. And basically, and the league, to their credit, realized the players and the coaches, they will always tell you. One thing I've learned from watching baseball over the years is, like, if a batter gets hit by a pitch, the batter will always tell you whether he thinks it's an accident or whether he thinks he was buzzed. It's,
immediately
they know, and they also know if a player tries a dirty slide or something.
Yeah,
right.
They know, and they know what's an accidental play, and they know what no, this is deliberate. So they, the players tell you. They may not always tell you in words, but they tell you what the decision is.
Yep.
And the players and the coaches told that the decision is we're not playing. And even if they tried to get Joe Burrow to warm up, and even if Joe Burrow decided on his own to keep throwing because he understood that he has to keep playing, if that's what's going to happen and you got to keep your arm loose, it was the right decision just to say, skip the game. Let's, nobody's going to be able to play tonight. So
I agree. I think everyone was talking about how it benefits Kansas City a lot because it basically just locked them into the 1 seed automatically and gave them home field, but everyone else a neutral site. Blah blah blah. I think honestly, no matter what decision they made, some team was going to have a perceived quote unquote advantage. There was no way, like you said, Rich, this late in the season without pushing stuff back and. That week before the Super Bowl, there's so many corporate related events and so much money as far as sponsors going on that have to do with like the NFL experience and things like that, that I think money was a big factor in not moving that week back. They'll cite injuries and wanting teams to be healthy, and I get that too. But it has a whole lot to do with the corporate events that go on as well. There's a lot of money spent on all that. So I think no matter what, somebody was going to have a perceived advantage. So I thought they did as best they could.
Yeah. I mean, I remember even at one point, Stephon Diggs was trying to, rile everybody up on the sidelines and, thinking, because it was like weren't they saying at one point you guys got like 5 minutes?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and like you said, Rich, they meandered their way to the correct decision, because if that game would have been played with DeMar still being in the state that he was, having a second cardiac arrest, like that would have been insane. Like,
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Logan says Tom Brady is like Nicolas Cage in National Treasure, and he's going to steal the Super Bowl. I highly doubt that.
I'd like to see them beat the Cowboys, right?
That would make him 8-0 as a starting quarterback versus the Cowboys. He has never lost as a starting quarterback to the Dallas Cowboys.
I love that.
Well,
that's a great stat right there.
Including wins opening game the last 2 seasons.
Yep.
That's one of those games I just can't watch, or at least can't, cheer for, because it's an NFC South team and then it's the Cowboys. So, I just have to deal with that game. But, whatever.
It's on Monday night, and we have I'm going to be set up as part of the ComC team at the Dallas Card Show. So I am personally happy for the Dallas Card Show that the Cowboys are playing Monday night, and there's no interference with the show as to when the Cowboys are playing. So on that level, thank you. Play the game Monday night. It'll keep interest in the show going. And I did notice, and I'll throw in a commercial for ComC. I did see a flyer. We're doing something with eBay for a special Super Bowl auction where we're featured on the homepage. So check the site out for that. So forgive me for the commercial intrusion.
Oh, you're fine.
Shameless plug.
Forgive me for the shameless plug. But I am paid by them. So every once in a while, I got to throw something out.
Yeah.
A lot of big Cowboy transactions probably going to go on.
CeeDee Lamb, Dak Prescott.
CeeDee Lamb, by the way, had an awesome year.
Yes, he did.
CeeDee Lamb is the real thing.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, whoever puts on that 88, it seems. I mean, most of them. I mean, it's weird, but it seems to work. Working for CD at least. Cowboys Bucks game is a plane crash game. I agree, Logan. I agree 100%.
So, what do you guys think about the Seahawks Niners for the third time?
Hey, I'm happy for the Seahawks. They made the playoffs.
Yeah.
Who would have thought the Seahawks would make the playoffs this year after losing Russell Wilson?
Yeah.
And some other players.
Geno Smith.
I know.
Geno Smith, who couldn't make it with the New York Jets, leads the Seahawks to the playoffs. And that just shows you what can happen, as you pointed out earlier.
Yeah.
You put quarterbacks in the right system at the right time.
Yep.
Good things can happen.
Agreed.
So
Okay.
just throwing out something, and I just want to switch gears for a second since I mentioned the Dallas Card Show.
Sure.
For those who like potential controversy, Backyard Breaks is going to be at the show on Saturday night as part of Trade Night, sponsored by Golden Auctions, in terms of being there. And I think their appearance is scheduled for 8:47 p.m. Central Time. I will just tell you that by Saturday, I am pretty shocked. I do not stay for Trade Night, but to me, that is almost must-see TV.
It doesn't shock me anymore. That's ridiculous. I didn't know that till you told me right before the show, and I didn't really have time to process even what was going on. But it doesn't shock me. I get why they're doing it. I get exactly why Golden and them are doing it, but I don't know. All I remember is at the National this year having a booth set up right in the area where they caused an uproar, throwing a whole bunch of packs, throwing stuff like that into the crowd, ruining a whole bunch of cards. Like I was hit with blasters, pack, stupid crap like that. So that was kind of annoying. Hijack. It literally felt like I accidentally walked into a frat house at East Carolina in the mid-2000s.
Yeah.
So,
they dress like frat house boys, kids.
They are. They're from where I grew up. I grew up in Wellington, Florida, which is right next to where they live in Boca and that area. So I know these kids. I know the type and all of it. It is that whole atmosphere, and they almost hijacked part of the National that year. And so it was, I am Ziggy. I am ECU Pirate. Yes, sir. Class 2009. But yeah, so I don't know. It is
for whatever reason.
I get it now. Nothing surprises me.
Yeah, but for whatever reason, they have just come into the hobby, and there's just a certain percentage of people that love these guys. I don't get it.
Kids.
Most people don't, but
Kids.
I get the kids, I guess. But even still, like if I'm a kid, I don't know if I'd be attracted to that. Good evening, sir. Kids love those guys, and they're the future of the hobby. So yeah, I guess.
But it is a wonderful school to visit. Always has been and always will. East Carolina is a hidden gem of a college. I will say that for multiple different reasons, especially if you like to go out at night. But that's all I'll say about that.
Are they breaking, or are they? What exactly are they doing?
I think they're breaking. You can check the Dallas Card Show Facebook page. They announced when they were doing things. I think it's a break. They talked about the time being 8:47 p.m. Don't ask me why the time was 8:47 p.m. But that's.
I saw one of them was on the Jacksonville Jaguars game on TV on ESPN, dressed up as Trevor Lawrence. I saw he got on TV a couple of times.
Really?
Yeah, he apparently dressed up as Trevor Lawrence and got on TV a couple of times.
Are you talking the guy that was in the crowd dressed up like him? Like they showed him? Yeah. Oh, that's right.
Yeah, that's Grant from Backyard Break.
That is him. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, no, like I said, I grew up. Now these kids are a lot younger than me, but I grew up with a lot of people that know them. It's not that small of an area when you live that close.
Yeah.
So yeah,
when the money drives,
I'll be curious to hear the reports on Sunday morning or Sunday noonish when people start coming back in.
Yeah,
this is just personal. It's to me, it's just must see TV. But that's my opinion.
I mean,
it's interesting.
If they're getting the boxes like they say they are, I mean, there's going to be potential for some big hits, right?
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, wonder what's coming at the Dallas Card Show.
Yeah, another 101.
Cowboy 101. What's the biggest cowboy hit in like Flawless or something? Is there like a 10 auto booklet of Cowboys or something like that? No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I mean that's interesting. As long as they're doing something and doing work and they're not getting appearance fees already, because I mean it's impressive what they're doing, I will say. But like Ziggy says, once the easy money dries up, we'll see. How long they stick around. I personally think they're one of those that are going to be, they've got that new generation by the hook. So as long as the kids collecting now don't go through that time period where we hated the card market, not necessarily because we were focused on other stuff, but because of what it became. I didn't necessarily take a break from collecting because I was in high school or something. I was always collecting. I just didn't collect as much because it was frustrating with, how the hobby was. Even at 15 years old, I could figure it out back then. Nowadays, these kids are 7 and they're way smarter than I was at, at that age. And so, it'll be interesting to see. But they definitely have that younger audience. I saw that at the National firsthand because I would ask a lot of kids, and that's exactly what they'd say.
I mean, they look like kids, and I think that's part of the appeal is that they look like their target audience in age.
Yeah, they play it up. They play it up. It's a shtick, and people are eating that up.
Yeah, I mean, hey, it works for them apparently, but it'll be interesting. Rich, you got to tell me how it is being a fly.
I'll make sure I call in the following week with what I heard was the
open up your camera, slide it over the video.
Rich, you got to go live.
I will not be there. As I said, by the time trade night hits Saturday night, I am home by 7 o'clock usually, and I am basically chilling until the next morning. I don't.
8:47 is too late for the hobby Yoda.
The hobby Yoda.
No, it's that I just don't want to be there and be there and be there and be there. I want to go home.
I hear you.
No, I go to every Collecticon for work and things like that, and they have a million trade nights. I haven't been to one because just like you, Rich, after the show, I'm ready for dinner and then to go home. If we have a trade night, it's with the people staying at the B&B.
It is so different when you're set up than when you're just walking around, or if you're setting up, and part of your reason you're setting up is because you're going to stay for trade night. So there are differences. For me, for us at ComC, it's just as easy for us to say the show ends at 6 o'clock and we leave on Saturday and we'll come back Sunday.
Right.
So Rich, with you and ComC, like what exactly do you guys do at the show?
We take submissions for the most part, we take submissions.
Okay.
And we talk to people about ComC. And if you've seen us at the National, it's a little bigger, but it's basically a smaller version of what we do at the National.
Okay.
And we get people to give, and we do run specials. Elite is 40% off and Select is 30% off at the shows.
Nice.
And so it's given us some really high level a better amount of high level cards coming in too. And basically we talk to people and we'll get some new people every show. And and sometimes the hardest thing we do, and Angela and Stefan and Angela's really good at this, is sometimes telling somebody, please don't give us these cards. We sometimes have to tell people no, because if you have cards from the base cards from the overproduced era, 88 Topps Commons at 50 cents a card for submission, probably not the wisest move you're going to make.
Yeah.
But if you've studied and you throw in, let's say there's some 88 Topps card, there was one in the system, and you're setting another one in, that's actually not a terrible thing. So, people actually study. I mean, at the National, there's a subset of people, maybe 20, 25 people that, when they buy cards at the show, they'll each night sort cards and say, this is my ComC submission the next morning. So there's actually, we do the same thing and we tell people what ComC is. And we have a great story to tell nowadays. I mean, you see how mainstream ComC has gotten since I started. We're involved in the Goldschmidt and Judge redemption process.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Because Fanatics, to their credit, understood why should they create a whole new world when ComC had the infrastructure already set up to handle things like that. Why reinvent the wheel when somebody's already invented the wheel for you? So, I think that's a very positive thing, and I think that's a great sign for ComC going forward.
Did
Fanatics has such confidence.
Did Topps come to you, or did you guys?
That is so far above me in the food chain. I found out like everybody else did, like the day before the official announcement when I saw a note on blowout. Other than that, I knew nothing. And I was perfectly happy knowing nothing. I was happier because I ended up having 3 Judges and Goldschmidt and got $60 of credit at triple cards. Yeah. Okay, hey, $60 of credit. Okay, That works for me.
Not to say, but come on now, Comsey. You got the Godfather here, Uncle Rich Klein. Come on now. You gotta clue him in on things like this. Let's see. As Ziggy knows, says Comsey is one of the biggest winners of the COVID boom. They are bigger and better than ever, and more people use them. I love Comsey. I actually agree completely. I actually just purchased about 15, 20 cards from Comsey 2 days ago. So, and they're already in the mail too. I was very, very happy about that. So, yeah, it's been interesting. I like y'all setup at all the shows. So definitely anyone that's there, definitely stop by, check them out if you haven't seen them. But
okay, and I'm going to throw a little personal note.
Sure.
I was in a little hobby chat, a little informal hobby chat the other day, and it's hard to see, but this is a 62 post serial card of Joe Cunningham, who is the only major leaguer from my hometown. In this little informal hobby chat, I took out this lovely frame piece of all his playing cards and an 8x10 signed and some other things that a friend of mine who's no longer with us made for me as a plaque. And somebody in the chat says, "Oh, sitting on his table is this Joe Cunningham card. Rich, can I send it to you?" Yes, you can send it to me. That's perfectly fine. So it's always nice to have random acts of kindness. So I always appreciate that. But that's something we should always look out for in the hobby as well. What can we do to help someone? It doesn't have to be expensive, but brings a smile to their face.
Yeah. When I receive any kind of gift, just the smallest card, even if it's a 50-cent card, like to me, that just warms my heart, and that becomes a part of my collection. And those are the stories, just to say, hey, I got this card from so-and-so, I'm all the way up in Pennsylvania, and he sent it from, Florida or Texas because he saw me on my podcast, and, he liked what I was saying, and, he felt moved, and then he sent the card to me. So those are the stories. That's what makes the hobby go round. I love that.
I had just recently, it was just last week, this one of the listeners at Let Me Get That Potograph knows that I collect Blake Pearl cards because he's in his ECU uniform, and sent me his Pulsar autograph out of 25. I was missing it. It's just a regular Prism rookie out of 25, but he knew I was missing it for my Rainbow because we talked about it on the show. And he ended up sending it to me. I mean, it's something that's going to stay in my PC, being East Carolina. But I mean, that stuff's awesome. It means very little to most people. It means a lot to me.
Well, I think that we're coming up on the end of the hour, and I think that was a great way to end the show.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Well, on that note, guys, if you did miss Saturday's show, Dr. Beckett was on the show as well. It was an excellent episode. It is up in audio format, so definitely check that out, as we are available on all podcast networks. And of course, you can see Hobby Hotline every single Saturday on Bench Clear Media, and then every single Tuesday right here on the Hobby Hotline YouTube. We will be live this Saturday with an all-new cast of characters. But thank you guys all so much for tuning in tonight, and we will see you guys on Saturday. See y'all later.